If you're getting ready to tackle the LSAT, you know it is an absolute beast. But what if I told you there was a system, a way to actually crack its code? Well, today, we're diving straight into the core strategies from LSAT Test Prep Mastery to show you exactly how to deconstruct and, yeah, conquer this test.
Okay, let's kick things off with a classic LSAT-style trap. Here's the argument. If it rains, the ground will be wet. The ground is wet, therefore it must have rained. I mean, it seems simple, right? It feels intuitive, but is it logically airtight? See, the LSAT is designed to do exactly this, make you trust your gut, right before it pulls the rug out from under you. So stick with me, because we're going to expose the hidden flaw in this exact argument. So the very first thing this book teaches is that the LSAT isn't just a test of how smart you are. Nope, it's a test of pattern recognition. It's a test to see if you can spot the traps that are deliberately placed to catch you off guard. Your job isn't just to find the right answer. It's to see precisely why the wrong ones are so tempting.
You know, there's a quote in the book that just perfectly captures that feeling. It says, "The logical reasoning section feels less like solving a puzzle and more like avoiding landmines." And doesn't it just feel like that sometimes? Like any step could be the wrong one? Well, think of this guide as your map through that minefield.
So, how do you navigate it? Simple. You learn what the landmines look like. And these aren't random. They're designed to prey on our natural ways of thinking. The book gives you a whole catalog of the most common logical fallacies. You learn to spot when an argument confuses correlation with causation, or when it attacks the person instead of their idea. And hey, look at that last one, affirming the consequent. That's the exact trap from our opening question. The ground could be wet from sprinklers, right? Or a fire hydrant?
The real key here is to have a method, a system for breaking down any argument you see, because once you can dissect it into its core components, the flaws just become obvious. So let's take a look at what those components actually are.
Okay, so every single argument starts with a premise. Think of it as the foundation of a house. It's the evidence, the because part of any statement. And as you can see, the book teaches you to look for signal words like because or since to immediately flag these building blocks.
And if the premises are the foundation, well, the conclusion is the roof. It's the main point, the ultimate claim the author's trying to get you to buy into. Honestly, your number one job in logical reasoning is to find this conclusion. Once you've got the foundation and the roof, you can check if the structure holding them together is actually sound.
Now, this idea of finding the foundation and the roof, it's not just for short little arguments. It is the key to the entire test. This exact same approach applies everywhere, including the notoriously dense reading comprehension section. We've all been there, right? You get halfway through some passage about 18th century legal theory, and you realize you haven't absorbed a single word. This book tackles that problem head on.
Instead of just passively reading, the book teaches you an active reading technique. And if you look at these steps, you'll see this isn't about memorizing tiny details, it's about mapping the argument. You're constantly asking yourself, what's the main point here? And looking for those signal words that show a shift. Let me tell you, this shift from passive to active reading is what separates a good score from a truly great one.
The common mistake is just trying to absorb everything like a sponge. It doesn't work. The book's method is to read like a detective, always looking for clues to the author's real purpose and the structure of their argument. It's a complete shift in your mindset, from just memorization to real analysis.
Okay, theory is great and all, but let's see how this actually works in practice. I'm going to walk you through a classic logical reasoning flaw question from the book, and we're going to use the exact method we just talked about.
All right, here's the argument. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the flawed logic you see here is the exact same type of flawed logic you'll see in much more complex LSAT questions. So, how do we break this down systematically?
So, let's apply the system. First things first, we ignore how absurd it sounds and we just deconstruct the argument into its parts. What's the foundation and what's the roof? And here it is. The premise, which is the evidence, is that one event just happens to follow another. The conclusion makes a huge leap, that the first event causes the second one. By laying it out like this, the jump in logic becomes so much clearer, doesn't it?
Now that we can see that gap between the premise and the conclusion, we can put a name to the flaw. The premise is just about timing, but the conclusion is about causation. The argument makes a leap that just isn't supported.
And there it is. We can precisely name the error. This is that classic correlation versus causation fallacy we saw on the slide earlier. Having a name for it means you can spot it instantly on test day, no matter how well they try to disguise it. And because we used the system, we arrived directly at the correct answer. No guessing, no relying on just the gut feeling, Just a clear, repeatable process that turns a confusing question into a simple one. This is what mastery feels like.
What we just did, deconstructing an argument, naming the flaw, and applying a systematic reading strategy, that's the core of what LSAT Test Prep Mastery is all about. It's not about learning thousands of random facts. It's about learning the handful of systems that govern the entire test.
And really, we've only just scratched the surface here. The system we used for that one question can be applied to every single question type on the test, from logic games to parallel reasoning. This book gives you the complete blueprint.
So, are you ready to stop avoiding landmines and start navigating the LSAT with real confidence? The entire system is waiting for you. Go ahead and click the link in the description to get your copy of LSAT Test Prep Mastery and start your path to a 170+ score today.